All right, let's jump right into it. Have you ever actually stopped to think about what the single most valuable resource in a classroom really is? For decades, right, we've been told it's the latest, greatest textbook, some flashy digital platform, or a meticulously crafted lesson plan. But today in this explainer, we're unpacking a radical paradigm shift in education. Turns out, the real gold mine, it's not something you can download, buy, or design. It is literally the learner sitting right in front of you.
Let's completely challenge our traditional assumptions right out of the gate here. Take a look at this idea, which is adapted from Paulo Freire's dialogic view of education. The learner always knows more than the teacher about the learner's own life. It sounds so simple, right? But just think about the implications that has for teaching. It introduces this incredibly disruptive, almost game-changing idea that the student, not the course book, holds the ultimate context needed to make learning actually stick and feel real.
And this exact concept is the entire foundation of the source material we're exploring today. It's based on a really fascinating reflection by Professor Jonathan Acuna Solano, who is a certified online teacher. So after taking a British Council course all about adapting English language teaching resources, he realized something profound. Even though that course was initially aimed at younger students, the core pedagogical principle, like truly knowing your learners, is wildly powerful for adult and corporate education too. Which brings us to our first major section, the greatest teaching misconception, where we pit textbooks up against the learners themselves.
So if we look at the traditional view of education, knowledge is basically treated like a one-way street. It flows directly from the teacher and the textbook straight towards the students. The learner is just, well, a passive recipient. But the dialogic view, it completely flips this on its head. In this model, knowledge is co-constructed collaboratively, actually using the learner's own lived experiences. Instead of just delivering information, you're building understanding together. It's a huge mindset shift.
Moving on to Section 2, Adults as Knowledge Resources, and going way beyond the whole blank slate idea.
Because here's the thing. Adult learners absolutely do not walk into a virtual classroom as empty vessels just waiting to be filled up. They bring an immense, and I mean immense, wealth of background knowledge. We're talking professional expertise, incredibly rich personal histories, diverse cultural experiences, multilingual repertoires, and really specific career aspirations. When we finally acknowledge these resources, the subject we're teaching stops being just a subject. It becomes a vital tool for communicating what already matters to them.
But, there's always a catch, right? And here it's opportunity versus willingness. Just having experienced learners in your class doesn't automatically mean you're going to get meaningful interaction. Professor Acuna Solano noted in his reflections that while his corporate adult learners were often totally willing to share, his college students, they were actually a lot more reluctant. So teachers really have to intentionally create the exact right conditions for adults to feel comfortable sharing those rich experiences.
That leads us right into Section 3, the psychology of personalization, or as I like to call it, the science of engagement. Let's look at the theory of andragogy, which was introduced by Malcolm Knowles back in 1984. It basically posits that adults continuously evaluate any new piece of knowledge they encounter against their existing professional and personal experiences. Simply put, if a lesson doesn't connect to their everyday reality, they're just going to tune out and disengage. But by actively acknowledging their experience, you make the lesson instantly memorable and deeply, deeply meaningful.
And honestly, it goes way beyond just relevance. Take a look at Krashen's effective filter hypothesis from 1982. This theory states that when learners feel respected and emotionally safe, their anxiety decreases. And what happens when anxiety drops? Well, language acquisition, and just learning in general, becomes dramatically more efficient. Literally, emotional safety lowers the actual cognitive barriers to learning. It's huge. Okay, let's ground all this academic theory in something we all recognize: the absolute power of the pre-class Zoom chat. You know, those few informal minutes before the official lesson actually starts? They are a total goldmine. You might discover one student has an upcoming business trip, maybe another is dealing with a tough workplace challenge, or someone just got back from a vacation in Japan. These seemingly casual little chats become incredibly rich, authentic instructional resources that you can weave right into the lesson to make it immediately relevant for them.
Now, let's pivot to Section 4, navigating boundaries and privacy. This is all about personalization, not intrusion.
Because obviously, you want to encourage sharing without crossing any professional boundaries. To give learners agency, we can implement a few really solid best practices.
First off, make participation entirely voluntary. Never force it. Second, provide choices, like, asking them to pick maybe 5 out of 8 discussion topics. Third, always allow professional interest to take the place of highly personal details if they prefer. And finally, model vulnerability yourself. By sharing appropriate details about your own life as the teacher first, you show them exactly what those boundaries look like.
The educator, Stephen D. Brookfield, sums this up so perfectly. He says, psychologically safe classrooms encourage authentic participation without coercion. And that is spot on. Adult learners, especially professionals who might be joining your virtual class right from their private homes, should never, ever feel forced to overshare. They absolutely must retain control over what they reveal to the group.
All right, Section 5, adapting classroom activities and making it truly relevant.
Let's look at how we can actually adapt the classic personal mind map. We all know this activity, right? But for adults, step 1, we've got to move way beyond basic categories like favorite foods or pet names. Instead, for step 2, try incorporating professional milestones and dream projects. And for step 3, include things like the technological tools they use, other languages they speak, and their long-term career aspirations. Just like that, a basic grade school activity is transformed into a highly sophisticated, super relevant tool for adult learners.
It is actually amazing how simple this adaptation can be. Take a classic game like Find Someone Who. Instead of using a standard prompt like, "Have you ever seen a snake?" which sure is fine for younger students, but totally disconnected for a corporate adult, you adapt it. You ask, "Have you ever negotiated with an international client?" Or maybe, "Have you resolved a difficult workplace conflict?" You're still practicing the exact same grammar structure, like the present perfect, but you are completely validating their professional identities while you do it. It's a real game changer.
Which brings us to our final major topic, Section 6, embracing learner-generated resources and co-creating the curriculum.
So the traditional approach in education usually means adapting materials for your learners. You know the drill. You find a text, and then you bend over backwards trying to make it fit your specific class. But the collaborative approach is all about adapting materials with your learners. You actually start by exploring what the learners already know, what they're already working on out in the real world, and then you build the entire instructional experience directly on top of that foundation.
So, what does this actually look like in practice? Well, here are some fantastic concrete examples of learner-generated resources. We're talking authentic workplace documents that they are currently drafting, or news articles directly related to their specific industries. Maybe even photographs from their recent business trips or personal travels, or real-world professional dilemmas that they are trying to solve right now. The absolute beauty of this approach is that, a lot of the time, adapting resources actually means you have to create fewer of them yourself. How great is that?
So the really crucial point we arrive at here is a complete redefinition of our job. The teacher's true role is creating opportunities for learner resources to emerge, to interact, and to ultimately become the learning experience itself. We aren't just dictators of content anymore. We are the facilitators of the vast, incredible knowledge that is already sitting right there in our virtual classrooms.
And this presents a pretty big challenge to all of us. Are you ready to adapt with your learners? It really forces us to take a hard look at our own practice. Are we still just treating our students as blank slates? Or are we finally ready to tap into the incredible, rich experiences they bring to the table?
We're going to wrap up on this personalized sign-off from the author himself, Professor Acuña Solano. It just perfectly encapsulates this whole human-centered theme we've been talking about. But it does leave us with one final, provocative question to ponder. If the absolutely greatest resource in your classroom has literally been sitting right in front of you this entire time, what are you going to build together tomorrow?